First, I'm going to talk a little bit about Holmes Murphy and give you a background on our guest presenters today. Holmes Murphy prides themselves on selling thinking, not insurance. They sell cumulative knowledge and experience that makes insurance and businesses work better. It's a philosophy that's worked for them since their inception more than 80 years ago. As an independent brokerage, they serve business and industry leaders across the nation in the areas of property casualty insurance, employee benefits, captive insurance, risk management, and loss control. And now I would like to introduce our guest presenters for today, along with my co-moderator, Brent. First up, we have Carla Rada. She is the Vice President of Operations for Holmes Murphy & Associates. Carla joined the organization in 1998 and has been instrumental in the development of captive programs, including captive structure, domicile location, incorporation process, expense allocation, and selection of professional captive partners for Holmes Murphy's affiliate company, Innovative Captive Strategies. Carla manages the corporate relationship for Holmes Murphy's law firm, as well as responsibility for ensuring that in business strategies, policies, and programs are developed and applied to Holmes Murphy. Carla is in charge of reviewing contracts and acts as a liaison with outside counsel. She also helps ensure Holmes Murphy, all subsidiaries, and all applicable staff are properly licensed and authorized to do business in the appropriate state. In addition, Carla oversees overall office facility projects and staff. Carla receives her paralegal degree from Des Moines Area Community College. In her spare time, she's actively involved in the United Way and loves to spend time with her husband, their 4 children, and their 2 grandchildren. Thank you so much, Carla, for being here.
Thank you.
We also have Terry Jensen with us. As the Chief Information Officer, Terry Jensen provides the vision and leadership for implementing information technology initiatives at Holmes Murphy. She directs the planning and implementation of enterprise IT systems to support business operations in order to improve cost-effectiveness, services quality, business security, continuity, and business development. A graduate of Drake University, Terry earned her Bachelor of Arts in Computer Science. She also earned her Master of Sciences in Organizational Leadership from Colorado State in 2016. Prior to Holmes Murphy, Terry served as CIO at Central College from 2012 to 2013 and the White's Company from 2008 to 2011. She previously founded and grew an innovative technology training and consulting company called Integrated Software Solutions. Over 14 years, that company offered 100 unique courses to over 7,000 individuals annually. In 2001, the company was awarded the Business Record's Best Workplace Environment honor. An active member of the community, Terry serves as a chair of board of directors for Life Serve Blood Center. She's also a board member on DMAC's Dyad and Iowa's Millions Women Mentor programs. Additionally, she volunteers for Youth Emergency Services and Shelter. Outside of work, Terry enjoys spending time with her husband and 3 children, as well as cooking, reading, volunteering, and teaching tap and ballet. Thank you so much, Terry, for being here.
Good morning.
And last but not least, Brent Redmond. Brent has been with Mechdyne for 16 years in several different roles, including engineering, sales engineering, and as an account manager for the past 8 years. Brent's past experience in these roles give him the knowledge to better understand his clients' interests and requirements to provide solutions to meet their business needs. Brent is an allied member of AIA Iowa, Certified Technology Specialist, and has completed the ITIL Foundation course for IT Management. Brent received his AA in drafting and virtual reality from Indian Hills Community College. Outside of work, Brent enjoys spending time with his wife and stepdaughter, riding bicycles, watching sports, and patios with cold beverages. Whew, now that we have made it through all of that, very impressive. And again, thank you all for being here. And we'll kind of dive right in, and I will let Brent take over asking you all some great questions as we get started here. Terrific.
All right. So Mechdyne's approach to design to projects is turnkey design, build and support efforts that results from and streamlined efforts for our clients, starting with the workflow analysis to help us get an understanding of the current workflow and how technology is used in their workday. We then interview a wide range of users to gather data on current usage and what they would envision their ideal environment to be like. After compiling all of this information, we present to the client our findings as well as recommendations based off of those findings. As we work through the design effort with them, we may also look at doing something like a proof of concept so that we can test out some of the recommendations and aspects of the design. Throughout the design process, we will review room drawings and renderings to help the client better visualize what the spaces are going to look like. Working sessions throughout this process help engage the client so they are really part of the process in developing this solution. After this design is complete and installed, our support team takes over for ongoing maintenance and support of these systems. One of the big pieces of this approach is our Strive area, where we stage and test the system before it actually goes into the client's site. Doing this allows us to uncover any errors, test programming, and actually let the client come and see how these rooms are going to function before that we actually show up on site. And it saves us time on the client side, giving them time to do things up front and not wait on us to finish this install. All right, so now, Terry, Carla, tell us a little bit about your project.
Well, we started the project in 2015. The goal was to not have new construction and stay within our same area that we're located in West Des Moines. We ended up doing hiring a broker out of Chicago to do a market analysis, and we toured about 20 facilities, narrowed it down to one, and was moving along with the one, and we had a client come in and propose a new build for us in Waukee, and that's where we ended up going. The building is about 94,000 square feet. There's 85 offices, 190 workstations, and we have capacity for about 515 people. Our current building, we're almost maxed out in space, and in 2012 we did a renew and refresh and went to some smaller size workstations, and since then we've actually downsized those smaller workstations to even smaller workstations with sit-stand desks, and which was a good thing for the employees, but we knew that we needed to move and get out of that space. So we've worked with several vendors throughout the course, because we've also done some build outs of some other buildings, and we started in Omaha last year and built out a space. We worked with a local AV company, but we weren't really satisfied with them, and we've had some issues. They didn't really work with us. They worked with the contractor. So and then we did the same thing in Kansas City and Cedar Rapids. We were introduced to Mechdyne about a year ago, and one of the things that we really liked was the Strive, coming up and touring their facility and understanding that when they put the stuff in, that it would actually work. We've had some issues with that, so we're looking forward to that. And when we toured, Kemen Industries, they were working on their build out, and we toured the space and looked to see what they were doing, and gave us some ideas, and so we're looking forward to that. And our build will be done in December, and we're anticipated to move in January.
And then I would also say, from a technology standpoint, that visit that we made to your warehouse really did make a big difference, because we walked into a mock conference room. Yep. And so we got to see what the equipment looked like. We got to hear the process that you went through with other clients. So that made, I think, a big difference as far as influencing the vendor that we went with.
Definitely.
Okay, great. So I'll talk just kind of high level and briefly about some of the solutions that we're providing for this new Holmes Murphy project. Several conference rooms ranging from small to large, All of them include an in-room PC and some wireless laptop connections. In the medium and large conference rooms, they'll also have wired connections, ceiling microphones and speakers for integrated audio. So phone calls will be done through the integrated audio system. Web conferencing will all be done that way. A very simple and intuitive connection for the users. So when they come in and sit down, they can decide whether they want to use their laptop or they want to use an in-room PC. So they would either log in or they would connect their laptop and either push a button on a barcode click share or a button on their hardwired cable that will turn everything on and route that device, whichever they choose, to the screen. So making this very simple. There will be control systems in these rooms, but the only thing really that will be used for is controlling volume and either dialing out for an audio conference. There's a couple of training spaces, one large training room that can be divided up into 3 smaller rooms. We'll have all the same audio conferencing microphone systems in them. The interesting thing about those divided ones will actually allow them to have, they'll have a projector on the front of the space, but when they're divided up, and even when they're not divided up, they will have flat panels on the side. So we've got additional viewing capability for folks in the back that may not be able to see everything that's going on the screen. Presenters, there'll be podiums at the front of the rooms for presenters, and they'll have control of the rooms that way. One of the other very interesting spaces is the atrium. This building is open all the way through, and the atrium was one of your thoughts on conducting town hall type meetings. When those meetings are not happening, it will be very open space for collaboration between employees. The atrium, again, will have, there'll be a large projector at one end and a drop-down screen. And then there will be mics and cameras for presenters so that we can stream these town halls, record events, lots of different things there. There's also an outdoor patio area off the atrium. Again, there's some collaboration spaces and some integrated audio so that you can listen to music when you're enjoying your patio.
As we're working hard.
Exactly. Several, just a few others. There's an executive boardroom, again, with a lot of the same features as the conference rooms with integrated audio and video, a fitness center in the basement, and noise canceling, white noise throughout the meeting or the office spaces. As it's a very open concept, this will help keep the noise down when people are working. So how have you guys approached other projects with regards to AV?
So I think that one's mine. I will start with this and let Carla chime in. I guess I'm going to start with culture. Culture at Holmes Murphy is extremely important. We really strive to live our aspirations and to make sure that people enjoy coming to work and have a collaborative space to work in. And so as we were designing the building and then working with you guys, we kept saying to you, we want to promote our culture, and I appreciated the fact that you actually listened to that and came up with some ideas based off of it. So the generic training room that you showed in that slide previously is kind of how our concept started, and then it turned into a much more detailed drawing. So I appreciated just that piece of the approach of dealing with AV. The other thing that I want to bring out is AV to a lot of people simply means I want video conferencing. And they stopped the conversation or the thought process there. And I think I was guilty of that. In all of our smaller offices, that's really what we focused in on. Whereas when you're coming into a larger office that's going to ultimately hold about 500 people, we needed much more than just video conferencing. Very important part, but all those different pieces. So looking at the different space and how we were going to use that space became an important part of the approach of how we were going to outfit this building. So we weren't, from a technology perspective, and Carla mentioned, we weren't as involved in previous projects because they were small offices, and we just kind of looked to the electrician and whoever they partnered with to make this happen. We obviously found very early on that wasn't going to work for this building. This building also, because we are the headquarters, will become the hub of technology, or is currently the hub of technology. So compatibility across the 13 different offices we have in 10 states is another piece that we had to take a look at. So when we got introduced to Mechdyne, it was a challenging conversation to start off with. You guys probably showed more patience than you wanted to at some points in the conversation, because we would just throw out random ideas and you would have to bring that down. So our approach was much more collaborative. We weren't looking for somebody to just come in and say, we have a solution for you. We wanted somebody who was going to listen to us and work with us to help us understand what we needed based off of our requirements. So this was an extremely important decision. It wasn't just IT that made this decision. We collaborated, obviously, with Carla's group, but we also met on a regular basis with our executive committee and our business leaders. And they helped get us started, and then after they said, okay, you guys are heading in the right direction, they brushed their hands of us and said, now go work on the details, right? So it's always in the details. And then from there, we looked once again for your expertise. We're looking for somebody with expertise in a large implementation. So rather than an individual office, we were looking at that enterprise approach. We wanted to be treated as if we were a large client. And I know you guys have much larger clients than we do, but we've never felt like a small fish in a small pond or in a big pond. You really do collaborate very effectively. We were looking for a cool factor, a conservative cool factor. So without spending too much money, how can we make sure that our technology is really working for us? And then, as Carla mentioned before, that staging area that we got to see and the thoroughness of the testing really helped with that. We did need a tight integration with other offices. And then the other piece that kind of plays in from a technology perspective is we are moving to Office 365. And with Office 365, Skype is part of that solution. And we are not currently a Skype user. So as part of the transition, not only have you been working with us from just here's the technology, but with your experience with Skype, using it internally and using it with your clients, here's the technology that you want to work with that will tightly integrate with Skype. The reason that that's important to us is we currently do a lot of video conferences internally using other technology, but we struggle with the external communication. So we want to be more globally accessible and have any producer or any meeting sit down, walk into a room, push the magic button, and they connect both internally and externally with our clients. So we were looking for a lot, and we didn't have a very sophisticated approach, and I think you helped us go from the naive questions to a much more sophisticated approach.
And the streaming with Dallas, because we have our CEO in Des Moines and our president is in Dallas. So we wanted to be able to have town hall meetings where both of them could be seen at all offices.
All right, great. So how did your approach change when you brought us on board?
So I think, as I mentioned, we started just thinking about video conferencing and working from there, and we didn't have any kind of a vision. So you helped us take our ideas into a vision, into a detailed drawing. So kind of using that funnel approach, which was appreciated. The other thing that we were looking at is just that design process. You had 2 folks come in for 2 or 3 days and do interviews with our employees. And we tried to come up with a broad spectrum of employees who use our meeting rooms and our technology today. And we got a very nice report that says, here's today's state, not looking so good. Here's what tomorrow could bring for you, and here's the recommendation to get you from point A to point B. And then with those user interviews, we went also through a workflow. So I think a lot of people don't think about how it's not just technology, it's about how you use the technology and being able to streamline the process, the workflow when somebody does walk into the room. It's great to have a keypad or a pad on the table, but if it says, start system, and then you have an error that means absolutely nothing when you push that button, then all you see is frustration, which, to be honest, is where we're at today with several of our rooms. So based off of the interviews that you guys did, you've actually drawn up a mock interface that says, start the meeting and call outside. And I can't remember what the buttons look like right now, but we're speaking English instead of speaking technology, which is what we're trying to do. So all of that has kind of rolled into this idea.
Yeah, perfect. So how would you have defined AV before going through this process of Mechdyne and after? And I know you've hit a few of those things already, but...
I think we didn't know what we didn't know. There was a lot of things that you brought to us that were, and the ability to see the drawings and know coverage in specific rooms, and which was things that we didn't have in the other offices. So the training room, for example, split into 3, where the coverage is at as far as the mics and the projectors and the cameras, and knowing what people will be able to see. It was awesome.
That very first bullet, I think I brought up in a conversation, it used to be simple, and in today's world, it's simple, but it's very complicated. And what I mean by that is we don't have sophisticated equipment right now, and yet it's very complicated for our users to use. And so they get frustrated, and it really does reflect poorly on the technology department, because anything that looks like a piece of equipment, whether we have anything to do with it or not, right? It's a technology thing. So I want to make sure that people can walk into a room and really feel comfortable with that room. So, we kind of thought that video conferencing, hey, if you have a screen up on the wall or a TV up on the wall and you've got a phone and you've got a table, what else do you need? And you really do need a whole lot more than that, including strategy.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. The user experience and how they interface with that equipment is a big key of keeping them happy.
Yeah, and we're really excited about what the new building brings to us. So every room will have video conferencing at one level or another. The small rooms, we're just using Skype and a little camera, so nothing expensive or over the top. But the rest of them will have some pretty sophisticated equipment to it. Digital signage, when we started, we really didn't think too much about digital signage, and now it's an integral part of the solution, both when people are walking into the space as well as all throughout the space for both visitors as well as employees. As Carla mentioned, those town hall meetings, you would be surprised at how unsophisticated our town hall meetings are today and how difficult they are to do in the different locations. So the idea of bringing everybody together for church is kind of what it's going to feel like, and Pastor Dan's going to stand up there and talk to us. I think that will bring the entire company feeling much closer together. Noise canceling, something that I think a lot of people don't even think about, but that white noise or pink noise, or is that what they call it now? Pink noise?
White noise.
Yeah, I think, makes a big difference, just making sure people can hear just what they need to hear and not get all the noise out of the building. And then another nice feature that I don't want to say is an afterthought, but that you guys kind of brought to us is outside of our rooms, we will actually have scheduling panels. So people can very easily see what's going on in that room, and they will be able to stand outside that room and quickly schedule a meeting integrated with Skype, integrated with Microsoft Outlook, so they'll have all those capabilities. So Now we're going to be simple and easy to use, or complex, but people won't know that it's complex.
That's right.
That.
Absolutely. So you went through a lot of experiences here. You know, we're not done yet, but what sort of advice would you give to other organizations doing a build out or a new building project, as this is something very new for you guys as well?
It is brand new. I think getting the AV provider involved in the beginning is key. We didn't know what we didn't know, and so it was kind of last-minute thinking, and I think it could have saved us money if we would have involved Mechdyne in the very beginning instead of more towards the end, because the wiring, the electrical, all of that stuff had been done prior.
We'll actually end up retrofitting a couple of the other offices that we've built out to make sure that we have better integration. So to me, that was a lesson learned. If we would have had we've done several moves, and if we would have sat down even earlier and just said, what's our vision for the overall organization a couple of years ago, then we would have always been moving forward. Now with the other moves that we've got coming up in the future, at least we know exactly where we're going with those. For me, another lesson learned was the importance of software as well as the hardware itself. So as I mentioned, Office 365 is a rollout that we're currently doing, and the less our users our employees have to worry about, okay, what piece of software am I using for this versus, this room versus this room, or if I'm setting up a meeting, it doesn't feel like Outlook and I'm comfortable with Outlook. So if you can get the software to just be seamless across all of these systems, it really will help make the transition much easier when we get to the new building.
That kind of wraps up the questions that we had for Terry and Carla. So we will move kind of into the question and answer portion of the webinar. Again, there is the chat feature in the bottom left-hand corner. If you have any questions, obviously please put them there for us. As we were going through some of our conversations and kind of our pre-meetings to talk about this, it was exciting for me because I hadn't been in all of the meetings that we had done. And you guys had just made some comments about, Carla, you said it earlier, you didn't know what you didn't know. Will you just tell us again, how did you actually get introduced to Mechdyne, and what was that process kind of like for you?
Early on, we were introduced to Mechdyne through a consultant that we had engaged, and then it kind of fell off, and then I believe our employee benefits producer was up visiting with your CEO or CFO, yep, and brought Brent in and introduced him to Mike, and Mike came back and said, you got to use them. You got to use them.
Well, that's really the way we like it to work, right?
Yeah.
It's about relationships.
Yep.
Yep.
Question from the audience we have, what was different about Mechdyne from other technology or AV providers?
From my perspective, the partnership was much stronger. So we did originally talk to 3 different companies to work with us. And the other 2 companies had expertise, but they didn't have as much of a collaborative attitude as what I was looking for personally. To be perfectly frank, the pricing, that was much further down the road. It was more about the design and the conversation. And you guys also asked for to get involved early on with just our construction meetings, our pre-construction meetings. So it was not unusual at all for Carla and I to have a meeting with 15 folks in the room that represented the electricians and our construction group, and Mechdyne was there, and so there was conversation throughout the different industries that were working together. And then the last thing that I was very impressed with, other than the things that we've mentioned, was just the CAD process. the fact that we would sit down in a meeting and we would say, well, here's an idea, and you had already had somebody drawing up, have a draw up in the CAD software. So as we were talking, you would simply go through, make some changes. We'd look at that change and go, oh, yep, that makes more sense. Or, oh, shoot, that's going to bump into something else we didn't think about. Let's make another tweak. So just the quick response and, as I mentioned, the collaboration through all of those meetings made a big difference as we were doing the discovery.
Yeah, and I think from a Mechdyne perspective, one of the things that we have run into a lot is being brought in late on a project, right? It's AV, we don't need to worry about that for a while, but you get down and you start actually working in some of those projects and, there's not conduits there, or there's no way to fit what the client really wants in that space. So for us to come in early, even if it's not attending all of those meetings, understanding what the design intent of the room and how they want to use the room, helps maybe guide some of those design aspects of the spaces so that they can really get what they want and what makes sense for them, whether that's a projector or it's a flat panel or it's integrated audio. And, if you've got a room that's full of glass windows and you want to try and do integrated audio, that may be an issue, right? So I think just our experience through a lot of different projects has brought us to the point where we need to be in there, whether it's a small piece in the beginning, it could really help our clients so that they're not spending a lot of money doing rework at the end of the project.
And we actually ended up doing just that, where we now have all of the wiring where things are going to be, although we've decided to do a phase 2, so we're not rolling everything out immediately, but we know that when we're ready for that second phase, all we have to do is plug in the equipment. So just being able to have that makes a big difference.
I think that's one of my favorite comments of the bullets you have is just know where everything needs to be wired, right?
Yeah.
It seems like an easy concept, but when you get down to it, it's not always that easy.
No, that was hours of conversations.
And the screen in the atrium was another. Just Mechdyne brought us several alternatives. The ceiling is 30 feet high, and having a screen that would be able to drop down and that you'd still be able to see with all the light that's coming in. And we worked through that and have a great solution.
Oh, tell them how we worked through that. That's a great story.
We went out to the building and set up a demo with different screens and projected it up on what we call the bridge, and we was able to see how it would look.
Of course, our building doesn't have any windows yet, and it doesn't have all the concrete on the floor poured yet. So we were in our construction gear, standing there. I wished we had popcorn. We were kind of watching movies to see which one of those 3 options made the most sense. But once again, you guys you brought that equipment, you made that suggestion, not something I would have expected. And it was fun because we got to go out to the job site.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That kind of brings up another interesting point just in terms of we talked about wiring, we've talked about lighting, but what are some of those other components that you ran into that you were like, I would have never thought of this if we hadn't been going through this process?
Some of the outdoor speakers and the poles that we're going to have for electrical and some of that stuff.
Yeah, for power, so people can plug in laptops if they're sitting outside.
Yeah, and USB.
Right
outside.
Yep.
Yeah. With the music outside, we came up with a very complex, really ridiculous solution for it. And during one of the meetings, and I'm going to say we were 4 meetings in after we had made that decision, somebody just went, couldn't we just, ... And it was just so simple. The solution was so simple. It's like, okay, buy that person a beverage because that took a whole room full to come up with that. So I also just like the fact that we were able to throw out different ideas and just, I'd recommend keep it simple because sometimes the stuff can you go over the top thinking technology will solve everything for us, and that's not the case.
So how will you guys deem the project a success? I know you're not moved in, I know you're built, you have this transition period that you're going to go through, but at the end of the day, what's going to make you sit down and say, we did this project was successful, and we are happy with what we have done here?
When our president from Dallas comes up and says, wow, this is easy.
Yeah, I would agree. I just want people to be able to walk into a room and not think about the technology. It just is part of who we are. That would be awesome.
Okay. So you're walking in your completion. What are your next steps to get into your building and to kind of transition your team over to the new build?
Oh boy. Well, we're scheduled to be done in December, and we are working right now on whether or not we use some of our existing furniture or we buy new so that we can move it in and then move the employees in. So we'll either do a month phase in or a 2-month phase in. And we should be in by February 15th.
And then will you go through what process you will do for the prep for that building?
Yep. So from the Mechdyne side of things, we're in the process of starting to order equipment and starting that strive process. So even though there's a lot of rooms, there's a lot of rooms that are the same. So we'll stage, one of each of the unique spaces, and then we'll test equipment for the other rooms. So everything will get tested. We'll finalize the user interface and work with you guys on how that interface looks. I know there's still a few things that we need to work out there as far as the flow. And really after that, we'll start doing some of the wiring up front as walls start going up and conduits are put in. I know the construction team is mocking up one of the rooms now, just making sure that everything is in place so that they can just start knocking those out as they're the same throughout. And then once we get to a point where we can start installing equipment, we'll lay out a plan of what rooms go in and how they go in. We'll do a lot of the same rooms together. Before we start bringing them down, they'll all be palletized and boxed in a kit. So when we come down, we'll drop a kit in a room, and we'll have a team just start going to town, and cabling should all be in place by then. So, yeah.
And then our plan is the IT department will be the first department there. So, so that we're learning how to use the equipment, and we'll get support for you guys afterwards, but we would just want to make sure that all the technology is up and running appropriately before we let anybody else in the building.
So there'll be a training phase there too as we finish the system up, training the IT folks. And one of the things that we have done in rollouts like this in the past is as you start rolling employees in, we've got some folks there along with your IT team to help make sure people are comfortable at the rooms. And again, they're going to be pretty simple, but it's going to be a little bit of a different approach from what they're currently used to. So that's worked really well for us in other locations to be there as part of that initial rollout. So.
And we'll be taking advantage of that.
Yes.
And I think that hits on an important part, as we don't ever want to walk away. Mechdyne won't come in and just high-five you on the way out the door, say, good luck.
Yeah.
Hope that works for you.
Oh, thanks.
I kind of mentioned at the beginning, it's a partnership. It's a long-term partnership that we develop with our clients, and I think that was important to you all and to us as well as we started down this path. Well, good. If there's any other information you think that we've missed or any other questions.
Nope.
I think we did a good job.
Set.
All right. Well, good. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, the webinar was recorded, and so that will be available and sent out to all of you within the next 2 days. So you'll have that. And if you do have questions afterwards that you think of, by all means, please let us know, and we can get them answered for you. But if not, we'll let you have your day back. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The conference has been muted.